Bruh. Hello and welcome to Monday's stream. Lights are not on. Oh. It's pretty impressive that I have my blinds closed right now, and yet there's still enough light to leak through to bounce off of my face. It's definitely April in the northern hemisphere. Just one sec. Yeah, it's a little bit better, a little bit more light, but honestly, it's pretty much the same. Welcome to Monday's stream, and I hope you had a really nice weekend. Hi, you guys. Yeah, most of my weekend has been spent either watching old movies or playing a little bit with the new tracks of Super Mario Kart on the Switch. It's been a while since I've done absolutely nothing on a weekend. Which isn't entirely true, because I also hacked a little bit on Amberol, but nothing major. Most of the time I actually spent it on not on hacking per se, but doing triage, because after the announcement and the release on Friday, lots of people started downloading it. Well, lots. I'm not gonna break any record or anything. Like 2,600 downloads. Yeah, which is like nice for something that was coded in about a month. But yeah. Something that is also very much still in alpha quality. I mean, you can use it to play your music, which is what I actually do, but I absolutely do not pretend in any way, shape, or form that this is going to be like production ready, because it really isn't. I've never thrown it even in the like direction of my music folder. It would very likely fall apart pretty much instantaneously if I did. On the other hand, a lot of music players do actually fall apart when I point them in the direction of my music collection. It's not like 600 gigabytes like a friend of mine has, but it's definitely not a small collection. And the only thing that managed to even remotely cope with it was Rhythm Box at some point before it completely fell apart. But it's kind of hard in any case. It's a lot of the music players in the Linux space either have gone through the let's index all the music ourselves and then we can do like we can fix the media tags in our database. So the user will modify the database in our own application. The other option is to literally use like a service to index your files, but even in that case, you're still going to manipulate the database. And very few did the thing of taking the metadata and modifying the files after modifying the database to reconcile the music file with the database itself. And in reality, it's not what you want to do. Even having a database is the files should be the source of truth, not the database. The database is just cache. You can, if you deleted the database, all your changes should not matter at all. If you delete the database and the changes you made go away, then yeah, no, you just made a mess. But it's kind of annoying that a bunch of applications did that. Like, for instance, Banshee used to do that. You modified the database. Even Muin did that. You modified the database, then modify the files. If you edited the song details. So that is the kind of annoying bit that exists to this day. Oh, my shoulders are not well. Posture check. Posture check. Yeah, I'm actually surprised about the fact that people are started like not just using Amberol, but also like submitting issues. The amount of issues that have been filed, just saying it's good, but if you could do this, I would like it a lot better, or something like that. It's kind of welcome, but in some cases, I really need to have a way to tell people it's not necessarily a good idea. Like, you submit something and you have to say no. Saying no is probably the most important skill a free and open source software maintainer has. You must be able to say no to people using your software. A lot of newcomers at this think that you should not say no. You should always say yes in order to get contributions, which is a fallacy. It just means you have no idea what you're doing. I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time, but whenever I create a project, I have an idea of what the project should look like and how it should behave and what is the end goal of the project. If you have no clear vision of what you're doing, then saying yes is just a cop-out. But the other thing is, a lot of people also think that whenever you say no, you also have to justify that position. Like, you have to bring out, I don't know, design documents or user testing or like, I don't know, any form of justification of what you're doing and the fact that what you're doing is the right way. You have to convince other people with like hard facts and no, you don't owe anything to anybody. you're writing free and open source software, you're putting the code out. That's it. That's where your obligations stop. You don't have to do anything else other than that. If somebody asks you to do something and you can say yes, it's a good idea and make it so, or you can say no. That's it. I disagree. Be respectful when you say no. Just say no, fuck off. But say no, I disagree. I don't think this is a good idea. Done. It's probably the most important lesson you have to learn in this space, in the free and open source software space. The fact that you don't owe anything to anybody. So if you don't agree, you don't agree. Done. You don't have to convince everybody. You don't have to convince anybody. They have to convince you. But other than that, you can still disagree. You can still say no, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think this is in the best interest of the project. I don't think I am going to maintain a project that does this. And that's it. They can take it or leave it. The only thing they can do is take the code and fork it and do something else on their own. And that's perfectly fine. That's the license you chose. So I'm always shocked about the fact that people are encouraged to justify every single thing they've done. You don't have to do that. You just move on. Well, what's the point in trying to justify everything? Just, I mean, I know nerds have the tendency to try and win arguments. I used to do that as well. I try not to do that anymore. There's no point in winning an argument in this regard. It's an argument. What the fuck? Why are you trying to win it? Just say, no, I don't agree. Done. I find it hilarious in some like user forums when they say, oh, this project changed this and said we are going to design it differently and did it this way, and then they get all like huffy and puffy and say, can I get like the design documents, or can I get the user like research, or can I get like the decision process that made this? And most of the time it's like, I'm puzzled by this. It's just, what makes you think you can understand the decision process? And even if you did understand it, what makes you think you can disagree with it? Are you like skilled in design or in the implementation of this particular project? If you aren't, then me showing you the design process or the development process will not change anything. You're not qualified to do this. If you want to understand it, then yeah, that's fine. But if you want to understand it because you want to disagree with it, then no. What? Hi, Georges. Like 90% of the time, somebody on like the GNOME subreddit says, "Oh, I want to see the design documents that define this, because I don't agree with it." And I'm always tempted to reply, are you able to even understand them? Even if we presented them to you, could you even understand them? Are you aware of the context? What is the point? Also, do you go through every single commit and then just I don't agree with this. What is the process of this? Seriously, no, stop yourself. Don't do that. If you don't agree, don't agree. It's fine. People don't agree on lots and lots of things. Why should they agree with you? Like UX design and software development. It's, yeah, the human interactions in the free and open source software community are always fun to witness and to deal with, like from a sociological standpoint. We are a bunch of weirdos. So, okay. So, yeah, let's go through a couple of the changes that I've done since Friday. Because I've landed a set of fixes here and there for some, like, very last minute issue, and then I landed a couple of things that Tobias from the GNOME design team pointed out, which were actually correct. I mean, I always expect whenever I do something like this for the design team to just show up and say, you should be doing this, really. And I tend to accept their position in a lot of things. Not all of them, but a lot of things I do. Which is another hilarious misunderstanding of how the GNOME community actually works. People think that the GNOME design team decides everything. They decide how to make applications, and they decide how the applications look like and how they behave. And if the maintainer wants to do something else, the design team will say no. Which is hilarious. Honestly, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of how the entire, like, power dynamic of the community, like, works. It's also a testament of how the GNOME effort on making things look and behave in a well-designed manner kind of became a meme after GNOME 2. Because after GNOME 2 like landed, everyone was saying, oh, GNOME is like using design. Oh my god, they're not just dumping random widgets in front of the users, they're doing design. Oh my god. And it's kind of a meme at this point. But no, the power dynamic is always the maintainer decides, the design team advises, and that's it. It's always been that way. Because at the end of the day, I know how to write code. The people on the design team, they know some stuff, they understand stuff, but they're not gonna push a fix. I really think that people don't understand social dynamics. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you're posting on Reddit /.Phoronix or anything, the social dynamics are kind of a black box. Yeah, that is true. But also, I think it's just it's the perception of the same way that happens in a corporate environment or in a commercial environment, at the very least, where the engineers are usually the bottom rung of the stair, and then you have management, and then you have designers at the very top because they're management, or at the very least they are people involved in like non-implementation kind of things, non-coding. And even in that case is a fundamental misunderstanding. Well, it's not a fundamental misunderstanding, but it's not how fundamentally things work, even in a commercial setting. It's how they used to work. In most of the companies I've worked with, and in, the design team and the engineering team are on the same level. They actually interact directly between. The designer and the engineers interact directly without involving management. It's in dysfunctional companies, like say Nokia, like of 10, 15 years ago. It's in these dysfunctional companies that the design team operates in a vacuum and the engineering team operates in a vacuum, and they are mediated by management and large documents. But again, that's a fundamentally like broken setting. It's not, or at the very least it should not be, the default setting. The community relies on social skill of individuals to operate. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do have a lot of rules, but yeah, they're not well defined, or at the very least they're flexible, and the teams are permeable. I mean, I am entirely allowed, in some cases encouraged, to leave comments in terms of design, not because I'm classically trained as a designer, even though I honestly wanted to, but mostly because I've been doing this job for a while, so I tend to understand how the design direction of the project kind of works. So I might not be right, but I'm also encouraged to give my opinion, and that is not because I'm me, but a lot of people are encouraged to give their opinion. So the barrier between teams is much more permeable and than the barriers between teams in a commercial setting, in a corporate setting. I'm not gonna say corporate setting and commercial setting because, again, I've worked in many companies where the same thing applied, and usually those companies were heavily invested in free and open source software, because then they understand the power dynamics between people and the social dynamics in flows, and the people that didn't understand that are usually from companies that have no involvement at all in free and open source software. So yeah, but yeah, a lot of people in the, I'm not going to say the internet peanut gallery, but in the larger ecosystem of people that are not involved in projects except from the sidelines, or at least they're involved in projects that are not the ones that they leave comments on. The end result is that they don't understand that, for instance, GNOME is not a company. We don't have anybody telling us what to do. The people that work on GNOME, they work for a company that also contributes to GNOME, get told what to do in the context of the company, not in the context of the project. And even in the context of the project, what Red Hat wants is, for instance, is absolutely not relevant. Yeah, understand that trust is the defining factor for the community. Yeah, yeah, trust is kind of core. Yeah, if you don't do anything, if you don't do anything except like provide your unprompted commentary, then you are not going to have any way in the goings of the community, in what happens in the community. And leaving a comment on random websites is not doing anything about it. Okay, so let's see, let's run it. I'll have to rebuild it from scratch because I was working on a couple of different branches here and there. And also I add a cache eviction. Yeah, so this is what I've actually done. Whenever you start Amberol now, if you check out from the main branch, you get an initial status page that tells you what to do. This doesn't happen if you're playing, like if you right click and say open with for a song or anything else. If you run it from the command line either. So as soon as you open a song, it will you won't see this at all. But otherwise, it will tell you what to do. So you are not greeted with a completely opaque window that doesn't do anything. I press choose a folder, and yeah, it takes a while. I just had to reboot my computer, so stuff that is not cached, and I have a couple of hard drives that are still spinning Rust. So as soon as I pressed that button, it took. The hard drive on my desktop PC started like spinning up really noisily. Luckily, you don't hear it. So yeah. So nothing happened really in terms of general design. I have a couple of changes in the pipeline there. We'll see them. But yeah, what else? Yeah, mostly some like very small buglets that have been fixed. Like if you haven't loaded any, like we clear it. If you haven't loaded anything, then the shuffle button is not marked as sensitive because you don't have anything to load. And even if you add a single song, let's say, what are you doing? Another bug. Nice. Yep, it didn't show the song, but yeah, if you loaded a single song, the shuffle button here will not be visible at all. Oh, that's another bug. Okay, I'll fix that. But also what? Oh yeah, right. If you drop a folder now on the, if you're using drag and drop, you can also drop a folder there instead of just dropping a single file or a collection of files. And yeah, the popover background has been changed, and where are you? A couple of style fixes. I disabled the update validation which was the thing that made me scream and rant on Friday. I was exceedingly angry on Friday. I'm still very much pissed off, and I want this to be removed on a project-wide mandate now. But the app data validation has been, I've dropped it from this project, and I'm counting on FlatApp to do the right thing. Because what FlatApp does with the app data is not what the validation process does with the app data. So I don't care. Styling, tweaks on the height. Oh yeah, one of the complaints was that with the new portrait mode, let me see if I can get music. Yeah. One of the complaints that was that I couldn't drop like a folder here, and now I can. It's still non-recursive, and we'll see what happens when it gets recursive in a very short while. What else? A couple of changes here and there. Oh yeah, now whenever the current song changes, we scroll the playlist to it. Scrolling a playlist, scrolling the playlist means scrolling a list view, and scrolling a list view is an interesting thing that is undocumented because of the changes in how we publish the documentation, the API reference for GTK. So whenever you want to scroll in order to scroll a list view, you don't have API, you don't have an actual like symbol you have to call like you would do in GTK tree view or other like containers. You have to activate an action, which is an interesting change. But the problem is the actions installed by a widget inside its own class are not documented at this moment. Back when GTK used GTK-doc, the documentation, we added a new format for detecting actions and basically listing them in the API reference. We don't do that anymore because the actions are a GTK concept, so they are absolutely unknown to the introspection API, the introspection parser. And the introspection parser just will take the blob, the documentation like blob, but will not do anything with it because there is nothing to attach it to. Signals are a concept, but actions are not. So we'd have to add the concept of an action to the introspection scanner for like language bindings, for instance. I have no idea what a language binding would do with it, but you know. And since we don't do that, then the documentation just disappeared. And it's a bug open. I'll try to work on it this cycle for JobJ introspection, because then we can pick this information up and publish it. We'll probably need an entirely new stance, an entirely new block inside the introspection data. But once we have it, then GI-docchain can parse it and then present it to the user. But yeah, otherwise, it's kind of an unknown. So if you want to scroll to an item in a list view, you basically just get the row you want to scroll to, and then you activate the action here. It's fairly simple, but the end result is that you have to know about it. If you don't know about it, there is nothing in the documentation. So again, have to be fixed. What else? I had to update the dependency on Lofty because apparently there have been a couple of changes there in the past month or so that improved the parsing code for M4A files. M4A are the Apple format. I have a couple of M4A files, but and they are parsed correctly, but apparently not everyone shares the same experience. You can also get M4A files from Bandcamp, for instance. Which, to be fair, is kind of how I envision most of the music playing on Amberol, honestly. I'm not going to make a Bandcamp like client, but the overall idea is that if you have Bandcamp or something like that, then you are going to download the songs. Well, you're going to buy songs there and download them, and then load them up in Amberol to listen to them. Though Bandcamp is now on the edge because it's been recently acquired by Epic, and it's going to be fun. What else? Yeah. I did another thing for like improved maintainability of the project, which is what I've also done with the volume control and the playback controls. I moved all the song details into its own widget because we are operating it on it as a fixed element. Again, this is very much how I recommend designing modern GNOME applications. Try to use composite templates as much as possible. As soon as you have more than like 4 or 5 related widgets in the same and a bunch of containers inside the same box or the same grid or the same, I don't know, same container, and you get like a bunch of stacks in the middle or stuff like that. Try to take it apart and put it inside its own widget. It will keep the UI definition files easier to work with, especially the main one. Window is still like 130 lines of XML with a couple of comments here and there, but ideally it could be even smaller. Like I had to add the stack to switch between the initial state and the main view. And yeah, the initial view is just a single widget with a single child here, using the Widwaita status page widget, which ostensibly is another way of taking a complex widget and then providing it as a composite template. But yeah, and then you have the main box, which contains only the song details, the queue controls, and now the playlist view, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 levels deep. I could move the playlist view into its own widget as well, and at some point it might happen, because I want to, if I want to load the songs in a non-blocking fashion, I will probably need to present the user like a loading screen. And in order to do that, I will need a stack with a couple of pages, one for the I'm loading songs, and the other one, here are your songs in a playlist. And that means adding another stack in here after the revealer, and we'll make the hierarchy here like 5 levels deep, and it's not going to be great, so I'll just move it inside its own widget and then add API to control it. And at which point the window UI definition file will be basically just 4 or 5 widgets, and it will be easier to modify. Like if I, for instance, want to change some of the structure here, add more levels or fewer levels, then I will get a decent structure, something that is maintainable in the long run. Never ever be afraid to create your own widgets. There is a reason why we made it easier in GTK4 to do that. Okay, so what else have I done? Yeah, small tweaks here and there. It's mostly like, again, buglets and small stuff. Yeah, I had a bug there. Let's go and see the bug. So if I run it and I choose a folder, no, I don't choose a folder, sorry. Well, no, I have to choose a folder. So I choose a folder, I add this is a GTK bug that has been fixed recently. So if you enter a directory, you cannot select it. It's been fixed in the main development branch. So we select add folder here, then we clear it. Okay, so there's nothing here, and then we add a song. And nothing happens here, which means that there is something wrong in the add a song code path. So add song here, add files to queue. Where are you? Add files to queue here, and then yeah, we do this in the adding a folder to queue. So if the queue is not empty anymore, then we immediately go to the next song. Otherwise, the song doesn't get selected. So we are going to do this. Here. So, right. Yeah, we can drop this and remove this. So we ask them the number of songs that are available in the queue right now, and if the queue was empty at the time when we added it, we just skip to the next. This is needed because if you're like loading songs one at a time, you don't want the current song to be skipped automatically. You want to only skip it if it's the first song. So let's go back, choose a folder, add it, then we clear it, then we add a single song, and that's it. Good stuff. So let's select song it's text. Right, we do when we ouch. Yeah, very, very simple bug fix here. So one of the things that I changed that is quite complex. Let me just switch branch. So this is one thing that I've done on Saturday/Sunday, mostly Saturday. The reason why I do not allow recursive loading of a folder is because right now we load the contents of the folder inside the same main thread as the GUI is, which means that we are doing a synchronous operation which blocks the main loop, the UI main loop. If right now my SSD is fast enough, so I can load probably 20, probably 50 songs without a huge impact. But if you have a large or large-ish song directory containing songs and multiple albums, and you want to load them up all at the same time, the end result is that you might end up blocking the UI for more than a second and a half, 2 seconds, at which point GNOME Shell will not be able to ping the window, and it will say will present the pop-up saying this application seems stuck, do you want to forcibly quit it, which isn't great. But in general, also, if you're taking more than half a second to load to do stuff, then the user might think the application is stuck and needs to be closed, or there's a bug or something like that, and it isn't great. The temptation will be, oh, I have a bunch of cores, so let's parallelize the entire thing. It's fine. It's going to be fine. Until you look at what you're doing. We are loading a bunch of files. We are traversing an entire hierarchy of directories, going through every single file, loading it up, and reading a fragment of that file that usually is not at the top of the file, is at the very end of the file. It depends. Some files have it at the beginning of the file, some files have it at the end of the file, and then you have to walk backwards for the metadata. And what happens there is that you're not contending with CPU resources. You're not contending cores. You're contending resources on your hard drive or your SSD, which is a single device. So parallelizing access to the same device doesn't give you anything, because the kernel scheduler will not be able to parallelize access that way. So, I'll take your SSD and I will clone it for how many cores you have, and then allow you to access all of the cores, all of the SSD clones simultaneously, because and that doesn't really work. So splitting up the loading to multiple threads and going at it in parallel is not going to make any difference whatsoever. It's not going to make anything work more efficiently. Even if you split it up in different processes and let the kernel, Linux kernel scheduler, IO scheduler deal with that is not going to work. This is an obvious like case, which is what anybody that has written on like a file indexer will figure out, is that it doesn't matter how many threads you use. If you are trying to access the exact same IO resource, you're gonna be blocked by the IO bandwidth, not by the number of cores you have. Which means that the solution for non-blocking the UI is actually to re-enter the main loop. So it means taking time. It means not trying to parcelize the work in terms of threads, but not in terms of like space, so number of cores, but in terms of time, which means iterations of the main loop, which is what I did. So if I switch to this branch, yeah. So I've moved all the code to load the files to like files from a folder and songs from a folder into a separate set of functions inside the set of utility functions, so I don't have to think too much about them. And I can add the recursive functionality there. So this is the code that enumerates the children in a folder using GIO. We also read their standard information. So this is the equivalent of calling stat on a file for every file in the folder, which is, generally speaking, from like a Linux perspective, is mostly free. It's the Linux kernel, whenever enumerating like folders inside a path, like enumerating files inside a path, will also preload some of the stat for you. So calling stat is usually basically so cheap that it doesn't matter. Everything else is dominated by accessing the actual device. So we do this, we append each child inside a vector that then we sort. We have to do sorting a little bit differently than just sorting. If we're doing a recursive loading, then sorting has to take into consideration the parent folder. So you sort by parent, and then you sort all the files inside that parent folder. So the key for a comparison function is the parent plus the name of the file, and then we do simple lexicographical like sorting, so alphabetical sorting there. Another thing we could do is doing the Unicode case folding as well, so the contents are directly comparable. That's another option. We're already doing like a lossy string conversion from what Rust calls the OS string, which is all file paths on Unix are in whatever encoding the file system is. It's not Unicode, so it can be Unicode. It's not a given that it is Unicode. It's random bytes. So we do this, and then inside the window, have to find it. It's not here. Where did I leave it? Yeah, here. So in order to add a folder to the queue, the files in the folder to the queue, we get the files from the folder, and then we use the main loop, the glib main loop, to iterate over the vector. We do it. This is very, very rusty. It's not. It's how I would do it in like C as well, but it's not the way I would. It's not written in a very C-like fashion. It's much more like list comprehension fashion, or almost functional like programming. So what we do is we take the vector that this function here returns with all the G files for the given folder. We turn it into an iterator, and then inside the idle handler, we ask the iterator for the next element in the vector. So this will be the first one. Then we map it, which means we call a function on it. We call a function on the element. So we take the file, we turn it into a song. If the song is not an empty, so if the default song is an empty song, it's a song without details, we use it to determine whether or not the loading was successful. It's not great. There are ways of working around it. Right now it's kind of a hacky way. I would probably need to turn it into the constructor returning like a result instead of returning an actual object, in which case I would do match, and I wouldn't have to call like equals here. So if this was the first song, because the queue is empty, then we tell the queue to skip to it, and then we continue to another map where we continue to the next iteration. And we do so until this function returns basically false, because there are no more elements in the iterator, in which case we terminate the iteration here. So we remove the idle handler that we define here. This is how lazy loading is implemented in any applications that uses the glib main loop, which is GTK as well. Any GTK application. I remember writing something like this. I'm not gonna say. Oh god, it's been forever. Let me double check. Because I have a page on my website. Yes. Here. So, lazy loading UIs with the glib main loop. And I think I wrote this, I don't have a date here. Yeah, wrote this page in 2006. So it's been 16 years. I still call it GTK Plus. I wrote this for GTK 2 and the list store. But yeah, I define a state machine and a bunch of idle data there. And then I have to create all the data for the closure and the cleanup here. And then we do it idly. So for every element in the list, we add it to the list store, and then we continue. And if there are no other items, then we finish and we remove the source. Another reason why GTK rocks. Cringe. What can I say? but cringe. Yeah, I cringe at my 26-year-old self. But yeah, all of that in Rust is usually replaced by this. So it's more efficient in terms of, it's a little bit like of golfing. In terms of lines of code, yeah, it's slightly more efficient because we can do capture of like the files vector here. We capture it inside the closure, and then we don't have anything else. We capture the window here because this is kind of important for like GObject. We have to ensure that this survives. The files vector is a native Rust like object, and vectors can be like moved. Oh, it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's a iterator for vector, so it will be captured by the move here, by the closure here. So it's fine. We don't have to clone it or do anything. We are literally taking this and moving it into the closure, because we don't use it anywhere else. So this closure here will consume the files, the files variable. But yeah, this is essentially what I wrote 16 years ago, but in Rust. So we iterate over the elements of the vector here, and then we just transform stuff, a file in a song, and add it to the queue. And we do this at every iteration of the main loop, which means that we can lazy load songs in a recursive way. So if I do this simple change here, of course I have to rebuild everything because, you know, I switch branches. But yeah, the overall idea is that you take something, instead of optimizing for space, so where space in this case is the number of cores in your machine, you're still going to be a single core, still going to like peg a single core, but you are going to, since you only have a single resource that is going to be the point of contention in your operation, which is your hard drive, you're going to optimize for time. So you're going to, sorry, not optimize for time, but you're going to consume time. You're going to it's going to take a little while longer to perform this operation, but it will not block, because every single iteration of this loop here is going to take like 10 milliseconds, 15 milliseconds. It's going to be fine. Loading a song is requires like loading the file, getting the metadata, getting the picture like data, decoding it, extracting color palette, and then like adding it to the queue. No, it's probably going to be in the order of like 50 to 100 milliseconds in grand total for each song. But if you do it at every iteration of the main loop, which means every like couple of frames or so, the application itself will not be blocked. And you cannot trick that much the you cannot eliminate the time you spend here. You could do the song loading into a separate thread, it's fine, but you still have to take the song and add it to the queue, and that will take a little bit because it will have to update the UI for that, which is why, in theory, we should like wrap all of this and switch the playlist view to another widget that says, I'm loading stuff, you have to wait a little bit. Like, for instance, we get the list of files here, so we can switch the playlist to a stack, to a new page on the UI, and say use a progress bar that goes from 0 to the number of songs that are going to be loaded, or they're going to be like a spinner that continues spinning, or whatever. It's absolutely fine either way. So ideally, you cannot, there's just so many things you can do to avoid blocking the UI, but at some point you will block the UI. GTK is a single-threaded toolkit, and because only one thread can access the resources, the windowing system resources, like your GPU, you cannot do much about it, or even the resources when it comes to like windowing system resources or events or anything like that. There is not much you can do. At that point, you have to consider changing how your UI is presented to the user. So let's add a folder here, and now the music folder also contains another folder. So we open this, and there you go. It loaded everything. It's still not a lot of songs. It's like, how many songs are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 10. So it's 10 songs. It's a moderate, like, it's a regular sized album these days. But it will take a little bit. We can even measure how long it takes by using the monotonic clock. But it will take, like, as I was saying, between 50 and 100 milliseconds per song. So if it's, like, worst case, 100 milliseconds, it's 10 songs. So 10 times 100 milliseconds is 1 second. So it will block the UI for an entire second. And instead, you want to block for just one song, so 100 milliseconds. It will still take about a second for loading everything. Probably a little bit more, but not much. But it will not be a single chunk of operation. And the other thing that is currently blocking everything is loading files from folder. Iterating through folders is not super cheap. It's cheap enough. I mean, have you ever seen Git? Git is traversing folders. It's not a binary blob. It doesn't have a binary blob database that you have to open. It's literally just traversing folders and getting all the files inside those folders to build the history of a project. And I mean, Git log is basically instantaneous. So loading the files from a folder is not a huge deal. In the case of this code, right now, we are going through a bunch of layers between glib, GIO, creating in GObjects and stuff like that. So it will take a little bit, it'll take a little while. I could switch load files from folder to a pure Rust implementation that returns GIO files or returns paths. If it returned paths or URIs, then I would not need JO file. I would not need G file at all. But we also do other stuff there. Like we check for the content type of a file before adding it, because we don't have control of what's inside the folder, which means we have to do a stat though, and we also need to do a MIME type check. And we could do a guess here on the file extension. If we didn't do this particular kind of bit here, like content type, if we only use the what's it called, the file extension, then it would probably be slightly faster. In general, the content type detection in GIO is smart enough to not sample the contents of the file. It will only do that if the file is non-guessable. So if it checks the extension and the extension only has a single hit in the shared MIME database, it will just not do anything with it. It will just take the extension and say, okay, this is the content type. Yelter. Yeah, UI blocking by opening something on a remote mount. That is also true. Let me see if I can get a remote mount. So I have my NAS, which is running on my local network, local Ethernet. I don't know if it will actually work, to be honest with you, because it's all sandboxed. But let's see. Let's try this. No, it doesn't work because it's on a remote. So maybe I need to add it directly here. God, I hate this bug in gtk/mother. So freaking annoying. Yeah, it doesn't work because the NAS is not detected as a reachable location by the document portal, by the sandbox. So it's kind of annoying. I have to figure something out there. Oh, it's probably oh. Yeah, there's a bug there for remote mounts. Yeah. Yeah, there are a couple of buglets there. The file chooser keeps breaking because everyone is afraid to touch it. I'll have a look at that as well. So yeah, but yeah, basically, yeah, loading files is cheap in the local case. It's very cheap. On Linux is incredibly cheap. The only bit of expensive stuff that we have here is the part that GIO wraps. So it has to create objects and has to like give them to you and stuff like that. So that is the most expensive bit. Again, I could replace a bunch of this code with native Rust types, and then collect all the stuff there. So I would still need at the end to turn everything inside a path or a URI or a GIO file. But in that case, the control gets moved to the idle handler, and this happens inside the main loop, one per file. Yeah. So this is the requirement for making the folder loading recursive. Right now we cannot. Well, right now I cannot, in good conscience, enable it. It's already not great, but I could commit this to the main development branch. It's already like an improvement, but I'm not entirely sure I want to toggle here to a recursive load until I figure out a way to also load traverse the file system more efficiently. Okay. Then what else I've done? Oh, yeah. This is another thing that has been requested. Which is actually something that I was planning to do, because this is how Muin works. So I add a folder here, and here, showing the cover art inside the queue, which again is something that Muin used to do. Let me see if I can get a screenshot. Well, Muin didn't actually do it in the playlist here, but it used to do it in inside the list of albums for the catalog. Yeah, if you load multiple albums, this usually helps a little bit to see the next. It's also what my phone does. Yeah, one of the changes that have been proposed is to move the indicator of this is the currently playing song here to the right hand side. I'm still not entirely convinced, because it would change the size of this of the labels here, because this will appear on the right hand side unless I reserve space here. It will squish the labels here. So let me see if I can find the screenshot there. There you go. So this is the merge request, and yeah, you can see here the indicator here will appear, but if this moved down, the title would be squished in order to make room for this. So unless we reserve space all the time, so we cut off earlier, but then it would look a little bit weird, like it's not expanding correctly. Or we live with the fact that the indicator would appear and the text would ellipsize earlier. the way my the way, not mine, but the iOS music player works is that it will introduce a section heading here between the previously played track and the next track and the currently playing track. We'll introduce a section here and say playing next, or currently playing here and playing next down. And it's a good change. The main problem is that GTK-rs View doesn't support that yet. Benjamin is currently working on it in GTK to have sections there, in which case then I would be able to add a section, for instance. So you would see this song here like disappear. Well, not disappear, but move out of the way, and then you would see like previously played songs before the song that is currently playing, and a header file and a header like section here saying playing next, which is, yeah, fine-ish. But yeah, I'll have to figure out what to do there. I mean, if this song is playing, then I don't know. I could replace it with currently playing or whatever. I mean, literally, I have a playing like property on the song, and if the song is currently playing, I would not display the cover and the information there, because you can see it already on the main view, and instead you would see like currently playing, like replacing the entire thing. Actually, let's try it. Let's see how it looks. So, well, for one, we need to do something like this. Instead of having like multiple children, we do a child here. It's going to be a stack. Stack. I'm terrible at naming stuff. And then this one will have a child with the first one is going to be gtk stack page. Property name, some details. Property name is name. And then property name child. And we move all of this in there. Oh yeah, no, we need to make it a box. Okay. The orientation default is horizontal already, so don't care. We need to move all of this. inside the box there. And this is why you keep your UI files short and manageable, because re-indenting everything is so annoying. I'm pretty sure the builder has an option to re-indent this stuff. So and this is the last child, this is the last object, and this is the last child. No, it's a property. Let me see if it's correct. No, it's a child. Yeah, it's the last child, not the last property. Okay. So, and then we have another child. No ID. Property name. Currently playing. And then we have property name child. Hi, Alatira. Bruh. Object class is GTK label. Property name is label. No, this is going to be plain next. And then we are going to do property name next line 0. We'll have to style it differently, of course, but that's it. So this doesn't change anything, except we also want to remove this because we don't care about it. So we go inside the where are you? Euro. So first of all, remove the plain image bit. And then instead we add the child. And some stack. I already forgot how it's called. Row stack. My stack. It's a template child. GTK stack. We already have a plain property here. We can remove this. The only thing we have to remove is the row stack. Because now everything is inside a single child. So where are you? Yeah. The only child of this widget here is a GTK stack. So we have to unparent the GTK stack. Unparenting the GTK stack will unparent everything inside it. This is a requirement of GTK4. You have to unparent the children you have inside your custom widget. We don't need that anymore because we don't access it. Yeah, and here we do, if it's playing, then we set row stack, set visible child name, currently playing, otherwise song details. And here the same, even though we don't really call it. If playing, then row stack, set visible child name, currently playing, otherwise child is. Yeah, that should work. Yeah, the naming is a bit confusing. Yeah, if I styled it a little bit differently, then it would work. Like, yeah, it needs a little bit of styling there as well, but that kind of work. It's a little bit of a hack. Like Kuro label song title. Yeah, like this. Let's see. The UI, the child box, the box here would go would have a style. Song titles. So the style here would be yeah, it's not exactly. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, now it's fine. The plain next should be, yeah, padded a little bit. Let me see. Yeah, should be padded as well. So if we do Kuro here and we go into song details, no, here, label, property, no, style, that's name, currently playing, and we go here and we do Kuro currently playing, and we do padding padding left 6px, and then font weight like 800 700, and font size, say 85% as well. Thought on imp mod naming convention. Imp is fine. There we go. Yeah. I mean, I'm used to the C naming, which is private, priv, which made it, as soon as I started replacing in my head imp with priv, everything just clicked instantaneously. It's just like, oh yes, that's what it means. So yeah, I'm used to the priv version, but also it's kind of weird in a Rust environment. I don't know. I mean, I would literally just do instead of curo here, I would do mod priv and curo private, and then it will all fall apart because the naming is not correct there anymore. And this one would be curo private here, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have any better suggestion at this point. The mod imp split is kind of how Rust uses it. I don't know, maybe mod object, but object is a loaded term. Then you would would have like object subclass object curo, and then here you would get, instead of self imp, you will get self object, or maybe mod g object, like calling mod g object. And then you would get a g object here instead of imp self g object. This is what how's it called, the C++ bindings kind of work. But yeah, that is a good point. Imp has a nice property of being just 3 letters long. That is true. It also adds some, like an imp is a like a kind of a demon kind of thing, and is an interesting it's an interesting naming policy there. But yeah, I honestly don't have any better suggestion. It's a weird name, but it's also not entirely alien. So my other suggestion would be to go to the obvious, like mod g-object, like mod g-object here, and then a g-object method to extract the g-object out of it. Hi, Insmirai. Yeah, it would be g-object. G-object. G-object is, yeah, it feels a little bit weird. The other option would be like mod object. Yeah, exactly. It's the exact opposite. Well, no, it's not the exact opposite as the C++ bindings. But yeah, kind of. Because in C++, the private part is the g-object pointer. So it's still accessing the private bit from a language perspective. In this case, you're accessing the private data structure, which is not the g-object part, but it's kind of the g-object part. Yeah, it's so weird. The start used to do foo and foo private, but they didn't catch on with the rest of Rust people. I can understand that. It's a very g-objecty thing to do. And again, this is why it clicked in my head as soon as I started doing replacing imp and all the stuff here with private in my head. Then it clicked and it worked pretty much okay. But we probably want a little bit less padding here. GK to alien to me, and the borrow checker kicked my ass. The borrow checker keeps kicking my ass. I mean, you're fighting the borrow checker is part of the experience. I think there is a reason why we have a computer doing the borrow checking, because humans are unable to comprehend it. So we had to delegate a computer to do the job. And this is the clear demonstration that humans are unable to deal with it, because the borrow checker keeps shouting at you. But yeah, I mean, this isn't as bad as I thought it would be. But when it's more borrow check and then when it's a kernel with a memory fault, that is also true. This is a lot less terrible than I thought it would be. Okay, let's keep it. We're gonna keep it in this branch, but we're gonna keep it. Okay. Continue. Oh, come on. Don't. This is going to be interesting to describe. Don't duplicate plain state. Yeah. The large part of our UI is dedicated to showing what is currently playing. So there's no need to replicate that information in the playlist. We can indicate what is going to be playing next. Now let's rebase it on top of main. And part of the work in this branch has been to add different functionality to the cover picture. The cover picture is exactly the same widget. So whenever we build it, will take a little bit. Whenever we build the row inside the playlist view, we have to present the cover art there. But of course, choose a folder here. But of course, here the size is 128 pixels by 128 pixels, and we should not put the exact same size here, otherwise the queue will be like too big. So the end result is that we have to be able to say, I want the cover art, but I want it smaller. In this case, it's 48 by 48. So in order to do that, I added a property to the cover picture widget. That is the cover size. It's a logical definition of the size. So I used an enumeration here: cover size, large and small. This is mostly just boilerplate. And then I added a property, cover size, that takes an enumeration variable, an enumeration value, in the case cover size here. I used the glib enum macro here so that the how's it called? The gtk-rs will generate type gunk to map this enumeration to an actual GObject enumeration type, so I can use it inside a property with a gparm spec enum. And then inside the logic, I check the cover size value, and if it's large, I return 128 pixels for the minimum and natural size. Otherwise, if it's small, I return 48 pixels. The code to do the snapshot is exactly the same because it uses the widget size, which is the size provided by the measure here function. And then nothing else. We set every time we set cover size, we have to queue or resize on the widget because the size has changed. That's it. And then inside the UI file for the row, we set a property here, cover size 1, where 1, as we defined inside the enumeration, is small, whereas the default is large and we never set it. So whenever we install the property, cover size is the default here. Is also 0 because everything is 0, is initialized with zeros. And also is the default here. So the default is also used when instantiating the cover picture here. Like in this case, I could do this. And here we go. It is exactly the same thing. But yeah, that was a very simple change that doesn't change the nature of the widget. The widget is still, I want this element to have a specific size and I want to draw within that size. I don't want it to grow or shrink or do anything else. The behavior is exactly the same. But yeah, that was a lot less weird than I expected. Like, so do something like this, and then we're going to take a screenshot of the window, and we are going to attach it here. Decided to do it slightly differently. By not having an indicator of the currently playing song, because you can see that from the rest of the UI. Instead, we show section header that tells you what's going to be playing next. attach a file. Yeah, this is very iOS music player at this point. But still, it looks a lot better than I expected, I have to admit. I could make it a little bit larger as well. Like, same size as this. Where are you currently playing? Yeah, drop this. But yeah, playing with the style is another thing that I expect to be doing for the foreseeable future. I didn't realize I had muted my desktop as well. I was still muted, but yeah, just in case the song started. Yeah, I'm positively shocked. And then we have to close this, and then we do rebase. Oh, the squash. Okay. What else? What else I've done? I have a few merge requests open. This one I should merge, I think. Yeah, this one adds a divider, so let's just merge it. It's a style like fix. I saw an issue. More distinct fallback core background. Slightly lighter gray. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So picture image no cover. We do background color. We do shade here. Oh, no background color here. I did a very stupid thing. I need to use current. Let's choose a folder that I know has no Let's see. This one. Whoa, way too much. I could use one of the selectors. Oh yeah. I'll have to figure out a way to deal with this as well. Yeah, this is what I didn't realize. I'm so used to stuff that has cover art. In this case, this is a so I spent years building my music collection, taking the cover art from like various resources online, or like even scanning my CDs and stuff, and putting stuff inside my music collection. And it turns out that a lot of time I was modifying the database. As I was saying earlier in the stream, music players sometimes modified the database instead of modifying the music files. And it was after a crash where I lost the database in Banshee, I think, that I realized that I didn't, all my carefully modified metadata and everything that was artisanally crafted like metadata was gone, and I'm still pissed about it. It's the reason why I don't want to use a massive media player anymore. Nowadays I literally go into music folder with easy tag and I modify tags there. This shade is too strong because it's white, and I should not be using that. I need to go on the Adwaita documentation and look at the named colors. Like window BG color. ID3 V2 versions and encoding is so much fun. Not? Yes, correct. It's so incredibly unfunny. Yeah, my oldest music that part of my collection is encoded. Well, I have a bunch of music that is encoded in OGG, which mandated Unicode because, yeah, that's fine. But a bunch of MP3s that I have that I ported over from whenever I copied a CD that I have. I made a backup of my CD. It's encoded in MP3. And if it's encoded in MP3, there's a good chance that it's using ISO 8859-/15 or -15 instead of using an actual Unicode encoding. Okay, so something lighter than that. So we need to use a window BG color, but shade it a little bit. So window G color, but we shade it to be slightly nicer. Let's go music. Let's open the same. Yeah, this is a little bit nicer because it's using the let's leave a comment there. Okay, where are you here? Would look okay, or something lighter still. Oh, I cannot shade it that way, because if I shade it that way, it will be like completely white in a light theme, the light style sheet. Okay, to shade. I honestly don't want to add Sass to generate the style sheet. Yeah, because the only other option is literally to embed Sass inside the manifest and then generate Sass and then generate the CSS. That's not gonna happen. I'm sorry, but that's not gonna happen. It would be nice if we added a class that we can write selectors for. I mean, we don't have a class applied to the window, like dark, light. That would be interesting. Then we could have different selectors in like dependent CSS. The only other option is to apply a class myself on the window, on the main window, and then keep track of the style sheet currently in use. Don't know if it works, but yeah, I'll wait for feedback from Tobias at this point. Let's go back here. So, what are the issues we have? Oh, right, the Zen mode. The Zen mode is still dependent on figuring out why the crossing doesn't work. I still have to ping Carlos and ask, because I seem to remember some issue on X, and I don't know if it's X dependent or it's just us doing something stupid with us being GTK. Yeah, this is a good point from Adrian. Basically, a tab would be focus. So ideally is whenever we lose focus, we set up a timeout, and the timeout, if we don't regain focus in between the time when we lost the key focus and we reacquired it, then we hide the controls. And whenever we acquire key focus again, we show the controls. But you might want also to pop them up whenever the pointer crosses the threshold of the window, so that you actually show that the controls are still there, even without giving focus to the window itself. So yeah, you basically have to tap the window to get key focus, and key focus will give you back the controls. Yeah, I'll have to ask Carlos for the state of the crossing. Right. Running hiding thing. Speed on the command. Totem has decent logic for it. I'll have to double check. But basically, I was using a event controller motion, and I was checking for the contains pointer like property, and the main problem is whenever I cross the threshold of the window, I would get the a notify emission for the contains pointer, both in the positive and in the negative at the same time. So I would get first the I entered the window, and the window or any of its descendants contains the pointer, fine, and then I would immediately also get I don't contain the pointer anymore. So I would get like true false in like short sequence, which I think it's a bug in GTK, but also it could be a bug in like not just GTK, but in the X backend, X11 backend of GTK. The main problem is that I'm still running on X because of NVIDIA, but I mean, I cannot just write off X entirely, because of course there are people like me who use NVIDIA and Linux, and they haven't switched yet to Wayland because they depend on something. In my case, I depend on the nightlight feature that currently doesn't work on Wayland, and I also depend on the NVIDIA driver not shitting the bed every so often whenever which is what happens on Wayland. But yeah, for GTK3 that worked perfectly fine. I used the enter and leave notify methods, and I tended to do that. I literally had to implement that the state tracking for that when I wrote Clouder. So I am confident in my understanding of how crossing events work, down to the windowing system level. But GTK is, I think, doing something wrong. Pairing crossing events is always borderline because the windowing systems are not entirely identical. Different windowing systems have different concepts of what a crossing event even is. So anyhow, oh yeah, there are other like another couple of things there. Like for instance, the mobile support that Tobias opened. It's true the portrait mode is now kind of weird. I modified it so that the window is 400 pixel wide and less than 800 pixel high. This should fit into a 768 display. So if you have a 1366 by 768 display, so not a full HD, then Amberol should now fit vertically. But of course, the mobile phones might have 360 here instead of 400, so ideally the window should be resizable. But if I make it resizable, I get into weird like sizing problems here and there. So I mean, it gets larger here, for instance, which is okay, that's fine. But also it gets really large here. And if I resize it, it's not terrible, but it's not great. And also I can resize it like this, which is bad. I need to basically add more space there. But yeah, and the other problem is if I do this, no, this works, that's fine. Yeah. So I was actually playing with another variant of the layout. I mean, this is why it's all alpha code, alpha quality code. Well, not alpha, it's beta, like between alpha and beta. I mean, I'm reasonably sure that this application will not eat your music collection. Yes, I'm reasonably sure they won't eat your music collection. So it's not really alpha quality there. Having said that, the UI is still very much in a work in progress. I'm still tweaking like everything. I don't know how to define something that is alpha quality in the UI side, but not alpha quality in the core. It's unlikely I will touch the core that much anymore. Some stuff I might touch it, but I don't think it will happen. And to be fair, the core of the audio playback like machinery is very much the simplest way to implement music player. That is also correct. The rest is just UI. It's the opposite of production software. Yeah. So that is absolutely true. People keep tweaking. People keep tweaking the core without touching the UI. So the UI is 20 years old. Isn't that pretty much the definition of the GIMP? People have been rewriting the core of the GIMP for the past 15 years. And the UI stayed exactly the same. Which isn't true or fair. It has changed a lot. But generally speaking, yeah. I'm kind of satisfied with the core, so I'm not gonna touch it. But I'm a toolkit developer, so whenever I see toolkit doing something stupid, I will have to fix it. So I'm gonna touch the UI. Hosting a flashy website with shitty backends. Yeah, that's true also. I mean, it's software. Even if you write it for the web, it's exactly the same. All software sucks. Regardless of the platform you're targeting. I apologize for my knuckles. So, let's see. So this is an experiment. I forgot to set it as resizable, but yeah, this is an experiment. Let's see. I don't know how I feel about this, honestly. Feels kind of weird to me. I'm unsure about it. It probably works a lot better if you have a lot of music here. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it works really, really badly. It needs a little bit more padding for this area here, for the area of the music control, the song details and the playback controls. And the sizing is iffy at best. So if I do this, yeah, this one works. No. If I open it again, it opens like this. So I need to basically specify a minimum size for a minimum width for the oh god, the playlist. So yeah, I'm still unsure about it. So one thing that I wanted to experiment on was, okay, we have this layout here, which is fine-ish for a landscape screen. But if I am in a portrait mode, I want the UI to be in portrait mode. So I want the playlist to go here. It's not a matter of resizing the window, because it's not a problem of the window, it's a problem of the proportions of the window. Sorry, not the proportions of the window, it's the proportions of the screen. So in theory, I could get the give me the screen, the monitor you're on, and if the monitor has a landscape orientation, then use a landscape layout. Use a landscape-ish layout. If the monitor is in portrait mode, then use the portrait orientation, which would be fine if I were entirely convinced by this new layout in landscape mode as well. And I know what people will ask. We'll use the 7 most frightening words in the English language for free and open source software. Why don't you just add an option? Is there a way to get monitor details in Wayland? Yes. You can get the monitor geometry. It's communicated to you by the display server. You can get the number of monitors and the display and the monitor geometry. Let me see. It's in the here. Okay, I can go to GDK. And yeah, you can get the geometry. It's filled out. It works in Wayland. You can also get the width and height in millimeters. That is also provided to you. So theoretically, I could get the geometry here or get the width and height in for the monitor, determine whether or not is landscape or portrait, and then adapt the layout in response to that. But yeah, it kind of relies a lot on me being satisfied with this layout. And the jury is still out on that. It would be resizable. I mean, of course, it's a big bag. I mean, if I had like 50 songs here, it would be fine. The playlist would continue down. It would be empty here. Unless I modified this to be centered in this area here, which is not great, but also is not entirely bad. But yeah, fiddling with the layout is one thing that it's going to be ever present. At the very least, until I decide. I mean, I started off with a landscape layout, but then I added the playlist, which moved the layout already in a more portrait mode orientation, and then I rearranged the song details and the playback controls in a portrait orientation as well, which made sense. The main problem with portrait mode on a desktop is that a lot of desktops have limited vertical space. They are wider than they are taller. For phones, it's exactly opposite, for instance. But a lot of GNOME applications are they're read vertically. Let me see. Yeah, you can see the list of podcasts I listen to. So podcasts is a good example of a UI that is like resizable here, and it's wide, but it's also read vertically because there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff there. So it's a long list of things. But it's still a landscape UI, because if you don't have a lot of vertical space, you can resize it here and it's still usable. So it's not this. It has a resizable here that change in the size that is mobile aware. But for instance, I don't want to do I don't want to use the libadwaita layer managers that like, because there is no point in me doing that, because I'm not resizing the window. I'm not adding more information by resizing the window. It's not like I go, where are you? No, here. It's not like I'm resizing the window here. I don't discover more information by resizing the window. If I showed the playlist when I resize the window here like this, and I hid it when I resize the window down here, I would still need to access the playlist. And if I wanted to access the playlist on like a mobile device, pressing the playlist, the show the playlist like button here, wouldn't solve anything, because on a mobile device, the playlist would appear over the window here, or I could make it appear as a flap that appear from the bottom, which works. So I always show it like this, and then if I resize it down, and I only show it if I press this. I don't know. Oh, interesting. Good job. So yeah, maybe a flap would work on a mobile orientation. So a flap, for those who are not fluent with the libadwaita adaptive layout containers, a flap would be this. So instead of having a utility pane and a main view here, I would have the main view and the utility pane on the other side, and the utility pane would be the playlist view. And then I would get the playlist view to appear like either on the side or from the bottom up. Do I get the flap position? No. Yeah, I would have to do flap and back end. So it would always be horizontal. So it would appear over the currently playing song, the media playback. Yeah, that might work. That might actually work. I'll have to experiment a little bit with it. But yeah, it would be the exact opposite of this. The content would be the media playback, and the flap would be the playlist. So let's see. Instead of a box here, it would be add flap. The orientation is still here. This is the child type. This is the content. Yeah. Let's be specific. Type content. And this would be child type flap. And then I would need the full policy. No. Flap position. So I would have to go here. Flap position and okay. So choose a folder, this, and then like this. That kind of works-ish. Yeah, no. I need to remove the revealer here. So okay, I need to remove the revealer and then change the revealer there. Child object, yeah, and then I need to remove the change the code base that does the revealer here. So Q revealer is going to be an ADW lab, and then I have to find here. Q revealer, no, yeah. Set reveal flap. Set reveal flap. This one we can remove it. Oh no. And then here, set reveal flap. And then and this one we can remove it. Reveals child. Reveal flap. Reveals flap. Same kind of API. So maybe this is how we solve it. Yeah, it's not cured. It's, yeah. Nah. Bloody hell. GTK window. Are you here? The sizing, yeah, it's gonna be different there, but and then we do this, and then we do this. I don't know, maybe it works. Does it look better? I mean, yeah. I need to change the initial size of the window, but it seems to work a little bit better. If I go like this, yeah, I have to change the background there, but and I need to fix that, but yeah, maybe that's how it's done. Maybe that's how we solve the problem of the orientation. Yeah, why not? Let's try this. What what does it change? Yeah, we'll have to fix the styling. Like right now, the where are you? Like, there is no background. Where is no background? Yeah, basically the flap gets a different background. Yeah, because it's transparent. We modified that. So we do main window flap. Let's see the CSS. Unfolded. And I also don't understand why it's not. Yeah. I need to unflap it. Yeah, yeah, that works for me. It's not the way I envisioned it, but it works. And I still get my small mode here. And as soon as I figure out what's wrong with the sizing there, the Zen mode will also make the window really, really small. Yeah, let's try this. Let's try this and see where it goes. Anyway, yeah, it's been almost 3 hours, so I think we can take a break now. Anyway, so yeah, there are changes coming in the pipeline for Amberol here. Mainly the layout of the window. We should try and take advantage of the how's it called? Of the adaptive layouts from libadwaita. After all, we're using a lot of the code there, so might as well. And my main issue of presenting the playlist while in a compact way, it also makes sense to me. And maybe we're still gonna have a mobile mode, so when we are building up the UI, instead of using a flap there, we add a different layout, a different like container, and we show the playlist below the main controls there. I mean, it works in any case. On a mobile, on a portrait layout, having just the playback there and nothing underneath it, it feels a little bit weird. So we'd have to center the playback controls and the song details within the main window. So in a portrait mode, you get that as a complete dead center of the UI, which is still fine. I'll still need to do that actually. So we can go here and v-align. There you go. So we are going to do something like this still. Like this. So yeah, that makes sense. Still makes sense. So in a portrait mode, you will still get this like this. And then on a desktop, you can do this, and you get a decent amount of information there. On a mobile phone, like this, you press this, and this would appear on top, and I need to figure out the background. And I also need to figure, oh yeah, I'm covering this. So until I select, I cannot unselect it. That's why I cannot press this button. But yeah. So yeah, maybe that's how we fix this thing. This is the layout going forward. I'll play a little bit with it. And I'll probably have to add some buttons on the playlist to just remove that. Just to unflap the playlist without changing the song. Okay, I think it's a good compromise on the it's a good compromise on the needs of a mobile UI and needs of a desktop UI. We can try it a little bit with that, and by the end of the week I'll try to get 0.4 out so people can test it as well with the new very latest changes. Okay, so I think this is a good place to stop. Right, time for the usual outro. If you enjoy watching people die inside writing application code, or if you enjoy people writing code for the GNOME desktop or for Linux in general, then why not subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I upload the VODs of the Twitch streams I do on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/ebassi, and you will be notified as soon as I start streaming. For everyone still here, thank you very much for your company. And yeah, keep an eye out for the announcements for the whenever I go on stream. And have a great rest of your Monday. And I shall see you all on Wednesday. Bye.